Okay, everyone. I know 8:30 in the morning is a brutish time to start, particularly with the rain outside in Brussels, but we will start and I'm sure people will continue to come in. So a very good morning. I'm Cristina Caffarra and I'm so glad to have gathered all of you here today for a whole day of discussion of the fine points of 102 reform, merger control as it may change in 2026, as we were told yesterday by the competitiveness compass, and maybe something on market definition. No, sorry, that was the wrong conference. This is not about that at all. We are not going to talk about any of it for our good health. So this is not, in fact, a safe space antitrust conference. It hasn't been a boring antitrust conference for many years. I tried to bring the discussion further. 2 years ago, I spoke about political economy. Last year, it was about the next world order. And I tried to talk about industrial policy, trade, international systems for at least 3 or 4 years. And not coincidentally, because I think that competition policy is a very fundamental primary framework intellectually for us to think about these issues. So last couple of times, I'll be brief with this introduction, I think we were in optimistic or more optimistic time. There was a sense, perhaps some could say Europe was somewhat sleepwalking into the present time, but there was also a sense that in the new political economy after COVID, we had to think about things in a different way, and a lot of new thinking had been ushered in, somewhat improbably, I must say, by new regulators in the Biden administration in the US. There was a lot of new thinking, Lina Khan and Jonathan Kanter and Rohit Chopra and Ambassador Tai, some of whom are here today, speaking here, ushered in an approach that I think resonated with a lot of us, because it was less about being stuck in a tower and being in a silo, but much more about what is it that we're doing for people, for citizens, and for the society we live in. So, in brief, the question that we're going to be discussing here today is really, where is this all going? When thinking about whether to have this conference today, I was talking to friends, Andres Montt, Benoit, all others, and I was saying, is this the right time to have this conference? This is a difficult time. And the general sentiment was of great encouragement to go ahead and do it, because of course, we cannot have a representative for the new administration in the US, for example, who have not been confirmed yet, but it is a time of great confusion, a time which is important for us to try and orientate ourselves on what is coming, because of course we are faced with great change, or maybe not. Maybe we should have seen this coming, and Professor Adam Tooze later on will make this point. There is a sense generally in Europe that we are under grave threat in various dimensions, economy, and we'll talk about it a lot this morning. The economic circumstances of Europe are worrying for all of us, and we'll start the day with that. And then, of course, there is the whole discussion in the afternoon about the digital power of platforms, the way in which the merging platform power with political power, which is concerning. So the day, in some sense, has a natural progression. We will talk first about Europe, where we are, the economic circumstances, what it means, what our politicians should be thinking about. There is a sense, I titled the first panel, Absent Without Leave. Where is everybody? What is everyone doing? And that is a sentiment which is quite widespread, together with a sense of anxiety in Europe today. So, are we facing a Detroit moment in Germany? Are we facing a European carnage, just as the US faced its US carnage before Donald Trump came to power in 2017? I mean, these are the questions. Let me stop here. It is a serious time. Events in Germany, I know, are on everybody's mind. It's a tumultuous time for Germany, and it's not for me to comment on that, but certainly it is a time of, again, anxiety. So, with that, and having hopefully set the tone, I'd like to invite my co-conspirator in this discussion, Sven Giegold, to start a discussion with me. I wanted to start the day with, in some sense, a provocation. And I have to say this, last year at Andreas Mundt great conference in Berlin, when Sven was the keynote speaker, he started by alleging that there was an active cartel between myself and Andreas on competition conferences. We had effectively coordinated our initiatives. And he went on from there. He became even more provocative. And so I thought he's perfect to help me discuss the day we are going to have. So Sven, of course, former Minister for the Economy in the federal government until fairly recently. I want to indeed start with the position of Germany, which is on everybody's mind, such a key economy, which is at this moment facing considerable threats. And we will discuss the reason in greater detail this morning. There's been a particular constellation of economic policies that have led Europe where we are, and it is under threat now, as Draghi has diagnosed in great detail. So let's start from there. I mean, of course, from the federal ministry, you're no longer in that position, but of course you have a vantage point in thinking about what led to where we are today. We know the diagnosis, but where are things? There is a sense that things are perilous in Germany right now, and the diagnosis is stark. Do you see this as how do you, why don't you talk about that, and in particular, what might be the cure for this? Because the Draghi recipe has been completely unpopular in Germany, we know that. And so the question is, what then?
Wow. So before starting that meeting speaking about Germany, we have to speak about your cartel, Cristina. First, bringing us together on such topics before 9 is rather inhuman. But what made me making that comment at Andreas' show was that both conferences are in a Steigenberger hotel, which looks very much like some sort of market coordination, and which needs to be countered by a new competition instrument. And then, of course, it is interesting, the topics you put up on the agenda. They are basically, I call these conferences Cristina Seattle conferences at Steigenberger. So, but Seattle would never have worked the big demonstration which started the debate over economic policy in another direction in some way, would never have worked before 9 o'clock in the morning. However, Germany, it's very serious, and of course one can see where economic problems can politically lead to. So yesterday, for the first time since the Second World War, the Bundestag voted a common text with the support of the extreme right and the conservatives, and it was announced that only putting something to the vote is no cooperation with the extreme right. And also already tomorrow we are expecting that for the first time a law will be passed in the Bundestag between the conservatives, the liberals, and the extreme right. So as a German, for me, these are really difficult and dark hours, and this is why I had to skip yesterday your dinner. But this is, of course, there's of course an economic deep problem, and I don't want to shy away from that. And obviously, Germany is extremely export-oriented. So when we have problems with our markets in the US, changes in China, then Germany gets much more problems. We have also the dependency on Russian energy, which we overcame at record speed, but not without cost. And all this together leads to economic weakness. And it exposed a lack of serious economic policies over a long period of time in Germany in a situation when everything was working well, our export markets were working well, so we didn't have to reform. And now we have the consequences. But when we pray in this church here, Cristina, in your church, then of course one question should be allowed. Was it really a lack of competition policy or wrong competition policy? So was it Andreas who caused the car industry problems in Germany? Was it a lack of scale of German car manufacturers which made them faltering as they are at the moment in the Chinese market? Obviously not. Our problem, and there Draghi is fully right, our problem is the lack of innovation and capacity to grow in European markets and in Germany. And the core of the Draghi message, I would say, has not been taken up fully by the debates which we hold here. So we talk about allowing more scale. There may be some sectors where this is really a problem, like defense, yeah, or that we have a lack of cross-border banking groups in Europe. But the core is not that we have too little competition, that we have too little innovation and scaling up. And for this, we need to make serious progress in the common market and in our innovation system. And this is still fragmented, and we do not dare enough, also the Commission does not, from my perspective, dare enough to be serious about having one common market, one regulation, one supervision, and simplification of this regulatory framework without scrapping the objectives of economic and social security and environmental sustainability. And this is basically the contradiction. So we do now discuss a pendulum swing again, also in competition policy, how to deal with big tech, rather than discussing the real problems we are faced with which Draghi analyzed rightfully. And unfortunately, so far, I do not see the energy needed in order to break through these barriers, the energy you have always shown in organizing your cartel.
So this is the core of the problem, really. I mean, there is some moderate level of energy. There has been some moderate level of energy in pursuing big tech, and of course that is a concern. We'll get to platform power in a moment, but the real issue that confronts us right now is lack of a plan for what constellation of economic policies will take us out of this problem. And one of the areas that is in discussion is, for example, some notion of a common industrial policy. We know industrial policy has been a very difficult word in Europe because, frankly, the purse strings are held in capitals. I mean, the Commission doesn't have real decision power. It's Berlin and Paris and so on. And there is a coordination problem and a free riding problem, including lack of trust. So in these dangerous times, when Draghi says, yo, you need to spend 800 billion before even thinking about green transition. 800 billion is what the price tag, and I don't think it's completely out of the question, even when you talk to business in Germany, but I may be wrong. Is that going to happen? You know, the Commission issues a competitiveness compass. Jolly nice. I mean, it reads to me like a very good intention, okay? So how does an industrial policy happen in Europe? Or are we just talking sort of just to amuse ourselves?
So my experience in the government on this, and I was not minister, I was state secretary. I have to say that because otherwise...
yes, it's in the slide.
Exactly, thank you. The slide is correct. Yeah. I don't want to claim something. The minister is, of course, Robert Habeck. But what I experienced, I was in a certain way his European foreign minister, right? So I was usually at the council meetings. And what I experienced there also with discussing with the Commission was basically the following pattern. So for an industrial policy, you have to set certain frameworks, but also then make specific mission-based programs. when you speak to the key people in Berlin, they say, no, 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 we can't do that, because when we give the power to the Commission to coordinate industrial policy, all the money will go to Paris. When I was in Paris, they told me, very difficult. You have the Commission president, they will give the money always to the Germans. And then you have the extreme right, which doesn't want anything to happen in Europe. The result is no industrial policy. And while in the key sectors, China, the US, are doing this very successfully. So the key question is trust, as you were saying. So, and I think for this, the Commission has also a certain role to play. So on the one side, we need in the member states governments which are ready to cooperate on that level. And if they don't, we will not have the scale for the policies we need to succeed in key industrial sectors. But on the other side, there is an objective problem. So always when a certain decision is not liked by Paris, they take the phone calls and they take up the phones and they put a lot of pressure, and often successfully. And the same happens in Berlin. So, and many smaller member states have the impression there are two countries which often get a special treatment politically. And there's also a lack of trust. So therefore, I think the Commission has to confront that problem of a lack of trust and offer a governance system which is much more immune to these sort of lobbies. On the one side, lobbies from large member states. On the other side, lobbies from also a lack of recognition of the smaller ones, and which is basically taking industrial policy decisions neutral to this. And in order to calm everybody a bit down, there can still be a logic of just return, so that over the programs as a whole, all member states know they get something back for what they paid in. Because without this, it will politically not fly. But we need a credible governance system for a sustainable industrial policy.
And who's going to do that?
Well, I still hope that the Commission understands when they want to realize what Draghi suggested, they need to confront that problem. They cannot say that problem doesn't exist. And the second, which I was missing when reading the Compass, there is an implementation chapter missing. So the Commission has been always very good at suggesting new laws. And if you look into the Compass, it has lots of strategies and also quite a lot of new laws. But it doesn't confront that the Commission is better in controlling the transposition of policies and relatively bad at effective implementation. And if you look at the figures of integration of our common market, it has actually shrunk. So our common market is not more deeply integrated now than it was 10 years ago. And this is also because we do not police effective implementation. And so if a German company wants to do business in France, it has lots of bureaucratic problems to register the posted workers. This is in contradiction to everything we do. We talk about the common market area, and French companies will find respective problems in Germany, I would claim. Yeah? But the point is, there's little policing. And the common market, we have lots of institutions, but the effective level of integration has not grown, and this has to be confronted. And then we have a basis that new companies can truly use the full size of the common market, as Draghi was writing.
So, yeah, well, it's an exhortation, hopefully, to the Commission to do what you say. Let's move on to another area which we are going to discuss extensively this afternoon, and I know is close to your heart, particularly in light of events in Germany, as you mentioned yesterday, platform power. This is something that Europe is struggling with. We talk really about US platforms, and in particular, their influence at this point on what is not only everyday's life, but really the substantive democratic discourse that we're facing. So there's an effort that Europe has done, of course I don't need to discuss it in this forum, to introduce regulation, and that is slowly being implemented with effort. Although there is a question as to whether going forward under Trump 2.0, that implementation effort of economic regulation like the DMA will really progress in a material way. I know that the Commission will say nothing has changed, we will do exactly the same, but when Trump shows up in Davos and says, don't you touch our American companies, then people, I think, listen. And then there is the further question of really amplification of what, of course, Americans are entitled to call free speech, but is a concern in some of its implications for Europe. Because when you have, as indeed we know, in Germany, a very, very popular platform supporting a particular political power, that becomes problematic. We'll hear about it. What's your position in all this?
Yeah, of course, the pictures be having Elon Musk speaking by video conference at the opening of the election campaign of the AfD, the party of the extreme right in Germany. To me, this is totally disgusting. So I have to say that it's an intervention we have never seen, and then on the side of the extreme right, it is simply not acceptable. But that is one thing. So the other thing is that big tech allows long-term super returns in key markets, and this is something a social market economy cannot accept. And that means the enforcement of DMA, DSA is really important, and it cannot be sacrificed under pressure. So I think that is a moment of European sovereignty, whether we give in and behave like the corporate leaders behaved in Davos. So when Trump was giving his speech, and the reactions to me, they were, it was obedient corporate leaders responding to Trump. So, and Europe may not behave like that. We have to defend our economic and democratic model. And this means curbing economic power is needed. It is needed because long-term illegitimate corporate power delegitimizes also our democratic model. So what we need is a Europe empowering economic policy. And this means truly implementing DMA and DSA. It means after, unfortunately, Trump has grabbed the OECD tax deal to go forward with our European digital corporate tax so that the large corporations have to pay a fair share on the profits they make on the European market. And in order to realize this, I think we have to take the simplification agenda forward. We speak a lot of simplifying some regulations, not always without reason, I would say, but we also need a simplification in competition policy. If it takes 10 years to pursue a certain case because the burden of proof is so high that basically until a case has been closed, 25 new illegitimate business models have been found, then we also delegitimize our policies. So therefore, I think we need a EU regulatory overhaul of competition policy, which allows the Commission to faster finish cases so that we can break up privileges in the market for new competition. That is what we should do to defend our social model.
Couple of final questions. Yes, yes, yes. Standing ovation.
For you.
So let me put a difficult question. But where is this leadership going to come from? I mean, you know, what Europeans are doing, and I think I'm a citizen and I watch, and, you know, this is not questioning the intention, but there is a sense of paralysis. There is a wonderful French word that I learned, which is tétanisé. Tétanisé means something which is paralyzed, and that is the impression that one gets. There's not much actual strength and in response. You know, we make statements about they need to abide by our laws. But, you know, if I were down, I was thinking, okay, ciao, write your postcard. So where is the sort of the leadership coming from?
Well, first I would say don't underestimate Ursula von der Leyen. Perhaps surprising for me to say, who had believed 5 years ago or 6 years ago that she would be able to pass 38 laws and a Green Deal. Nobody would have expected that. So, she came into office saying it's a global commission. Now it's a global moment. So Trump basically puts a lot of pressure on lots of things Europe is saying. And now the question is, will she give in easily? Or will she defend our economic and European model in the sense of a Europe empowering economic policy? I believe it's not yet clear. So therefore, but I would send the following message: don't underestimate her. And second, of course, the key is what happens in the member states. And that's our weakness at the moment, as we know, because in several key member states we have difficult governments, to put it politely, and in Germany, well, we are in the middle of an election campaign. You will not be surprised whom I will be voting for and who believe is able to deliver the change and European leadership we need. But I can tell you only one thing. The question what we will do with Europe is at the core of that election campaign. So that is a big issue. Will we now weaken or strengthen European integration? Is one of the key subjects going through the campaign. And I hope we can deliver some more leadership now than we could in the past. And I will not go more into party politics to not misuse your church. Yeah?
So final question before we gather the panel. I want to end hopefully on a slightly more positive note, because we've been pretty bleak and you know, we're all worried pretty much about what's next. Europe has been able, after all, to show that it could rise to challenges, even pretty fatal challenges like COVID, which we survived. So what's the positive, what's the silver lining for you at this point? Where's the hope?
Well, my religious answer would be hope is always coming from God. So therefore I have never a lack of hope. That is the good thing. But politically speaking, I would say, again, basically, with the Green Deal, Europe has really led the way, and we did the right thing. And of course, there are lots of people around who want to destroy what we did. Of course, in such a huge project, with so many legislation, details have always to be corrected. We have to be pragmatic how we do it. But it's interesting to see that this could be the basis for a lot of new competitive industries made in Europe, if we do it right. So now the real thing is not to scrap our competition policy, to scrap our green policies. The whole objective, which also the Commission embraced, is how to do it in a way that we profit now economically from it. And this is my source of hope, but for this we need member states and majorities and businesses which want to invest in this project, politically and financially. If that is not happening, it will fail. Draghi has shown it, but we can use the common market, instruments of competition and economic policy in order to win this race. And that is what keeps me working beyond God.
Thank you so much. Let me thank Sven for his beginning with me, and please join me in thanking him. And I would like to, thank you, invite the panel to...
I go down or...
You can stay if you want.
You define.